So, greetings to everybody watching from around the world. This is Aya the Humanitarian, as you see it from the page. It just occurred to me that I had a YouTube channel. Totally forgot about that. I'm not a live person. I'm not used to doing videos and all that. So, it just occurred to me I could be using this from time to time to explain some things. I've been doing that on Facebook, but I could use it here to do videos to be able to explain some issues about spirituality and religion. I've not words can't suffice to do that on the social media, Facebook. Words can't suffice. So today I'll just introduce this subject. And before I do, it's important I let everybody watching to understand that I'm coming up with a book. It's about this subject, Isaiah 53. That's the most debated chapter in the Bible. That's a chapter that is mastered, possibly word verbatim by Christians, Muslims, and Jews. I think that's the only chapter that is mastered word for word by all three dominant religions I just mentioned. And there is this debate on who is the servant. Who is the servant in that chapter? To Christians, it's Jesus the Christ. I just said Jesus the Christ, not Jesus Christ, because there's a lot about Jesus that the people don't really grasp, especially Christians. It's Jesus the Christ. Christ is from the Greek word Christos, which means anointed. So it is the Christ. It's not his name. It means anointed one. To Jews, it's Israel. The suffering servant is Israel, personified as a collective entity. To the greater part of Muslims, is Jeremiah. So, who exactly is this suffering servant? If you've not read the book of Isaiah, it will be very difficult for you to understand who this suffering servant is. It will be almost impossible for you to even understand it. You will just think the answers I would give you would are just some sort of made up stories. If you offer the book, if you offer the book, those who are used to literature, let me just use an example. Let me say Romeo and Juliet. If you get to be offered Romeo and Juliet to read, and you miss the first 52 pages, and you get to page 53 and read just page 53, it is highly probable, almost 95 or 99% probable, that you won't even understand what the story is all about. To be able to understand Romeo and Juliet as a whole, you have to begin from the first page, reading through from the first to the last page. Anyone will agree with me that what I'm saying is making a lot of sense. So if you get to the book of Isaiah and you get to Isaiah 53, you read about the suffering servant without reading Isaiah 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 40, 41, 42, 43, 51, 52, 53, then 54. There is no way your knowledge on who the suffering servant is would make sense to anybody else apart from what you've believed in all along. So you have to go through all the chapters, and that's what we've been doing for those who've been following us on social media. That's what we've been doing for quite a while. I had a humanitarian, same name on Facebook. We'll be going through all the chapters of Isaiah. So, who is this suffering servant? First of all, the first thing you would do is to try to identify who Isaiah refers to as the servant in his book. That's what you would do. Who does he refer to as the servant? The servant to you can mean anything. You see, the key to understanding scripture, the key to understanding scripture is to stay in the context. If you do not stay in the context, every other thing you would, any conclusion you would draw will be based on a pretext. So you need to stay in the context of his book. You need to let him, Isaiah, explain his book to you. Don't put words into his mouth. He was writing this book of Isaiah to about 2,700 years ago. It was based on the context, his experiences, his encounter with the divine. All those things came into being. So you must get into the context and stay in the context. So, who is the servant to Isaiah? That's the question you should first ask yourself. Who is the servant? In his book, the servant to you can mean anything. The servant to all the prophets can mean anything. The servant in the Quran can mean anything. The servant in the New Testament can mean anything. But the servant to him means something specific. So, who is the servant? Okay, let's just go through the build up to Isaiah 53. Just jot this down because I don't want to be too long. Just want to introduce this. Just jot this down. The first scripture I'll quote to you in the book of Isaiah. I'm staying in the book of Isaiah. I'm not leaving the book of Isaiah. It's Isaiah 41, verse 8 to 10. Isaiah 41, verse 8 to 10. Isaiah 41, verse 8 to 10. Clearly, in very clear, unambiguous terms, the servant is referred to as Israel. Israel, you are my servant. Jacob and Israel. Jacob is and Israel are used interchangeably for those who've studied scripture. You would understand that Jacob is Israel, sorry, is a synonym for Jacob. Jacob's name was changed into Israel by God. So Israel and Jacob are used interchangeably. It's the same thing. So Isaiah 41, verse 8 to 9. You are my servant, Israel, Jacob, the one I've chosen. Clearly, it's in very clear terms, unambiguously. Isaiah 42, verse 19 to 20. Isaiah 42, verse 19 to 20. Taking that slowly so that you take down notes and you'll be able to follow. Implicitly, just get through implicitly. Again, he's addressing his servant, the people of Israel. Isaiah 42, verse 19 to 20. We're going slowly. You just jot that down. You'd follow up. Isaiah 43, verse 10. Again, God echoes it. You are my servant, Jacob, Israel, the one I've chosen. Again, in very clear, unambiguous terms. Isaiah 44, verse 1 to 3. The same thing. 44, verse 1 to 3. The same thing. Israel, you're my servant. Jacob, you're my servant, the one I've chosen. I've chosen you. I've called you. Isaiah 45, verse 4. The same thing. 45, verse 4. The same thing. Jacob, you're my servant. Israel, the one I've chosen. The same thing is repeated. Isaiah 48, verse 20. You are my servant, Jacob, Israel, my chosen one. Isaiah 48, verse 20. Isaiah 49, verse 3. You are my servant, Israel, Jacob, the one I've chosen. Repeatedly. It's consistent. Isaiah 52. Just that's the immediate chapter. The immediate chapter. The immediate chapter to Isaiah 53. Isaiah 52. The servant is clearly identified as Israel. It's Israel the servant. Isaiah 54. So we'll move to 53 to 54. It ends with the phrase, this is the heritage of the servants. Now is an S of the Lord. The heritage, everything that is recounted in Isaiah 54. So the two neighboring chapters, even the two neighboring chapters to Isaiah 53, clearly identify the servant as Israel, God's chosen one, whom God identifies as, whom God describes, sorry, as someone he formed in the womb. Before he formed in the womb, he formed them, he called them to be his servants. Now, if consistently, God refers to Israel as his servant, there is no reason why in Isaiah 53 the servant automatically changes to somebody else. There is no reason. If the servant changes to somebody else, then Isaiah should be able to identify to us that nameless servant in his book. There's no reason. The build up throughout is Israel, the servant of God. Now, to make things even more clearer, the last verse of Isaiah 52, what you must note is that the prophets, apart from the maybe this the Psalms, the Songs of Songs, all the books of the Tanakh. The Tanakh is the Hebrew Bible, the Tanakh, what the Christians have as Old Testament. All the chapters in the Tanakh, all of them, all the books, they are not written in chapters. It is a single scroll from top to bottom. So, for example, you just get an intro from, um, for example, Genesis. In the beginning was the Word was with God. No, no, getting to that. Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So I was already going to these repetitions that we've been having all our life. And something is repeated to you over and over, it becomes truth. So much so that even when you find issues with it, it's it's in your bloodstream. You find it very difficult to pull that out. You got to get used to that. So in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So Genesis, you start from that in the beginning, right down to the last chapter, the last word of the last chapter of Genesis. There are no chapters. That's how the Bible was written. It's only that's how the Tanakh was written. It's only about 400 to 500 years ago that to ease reading and understanding, they had to divide into chapters. So the last verse of Isaiah 52, the last verse, what does it tell you? It tells you that the servant will shock kings and of the nations. Kings will be shocked at him because what they have never been told, what they've never heard, what they've never seen, they will see. That's the last verse. As I said, there are no chapter breaks. So the transition immediately gets to what you have now, Isaiah 53:1. It's supposed to be a continuation. And what does the Isaiah 53:1 tell you? It tells you, who would have believed our message? To whom has the hand of the Lord been revealed? Who would have believed this? So, who is shocked in Isaiah 52:15? The kings of the nations are shocked. Give me one reason why the people talking as from Isaiah 53:1 will not be the kings who are shocked. It's simple. You don't even need to be a rocket scientist to understand that the kings are shocked in Isaiah 52:15. They are shocked. They they are like, what are we seeing? They are like, and in Isaiah 53:1, they declare, what is this we are seeing? Is this is unbelievable. To whom has the hand of the Lord been revealed? They are saying, but to whom has God revealed his hand? And any time in the Tanakh, God reveals his hand, his holy arm. Anytime you see that expression, his holy arm in the Tanakh, it's in favor of the Jews. Always in favor of the Jews, against the oppressors of the Jews. So Isaiah 53, all the poetry you're seeing in Isaiah 53 is recounted from the perspective of the kings, the leaders, the rulers of the nations that will be shocked and terribly shocked, as just mentioned in Isaiah 52:15. That's the last verse, with the exaltation, the salvation, and the redemption of the Jews. So they are shocked and they're saying, Isaiah 53:1, this is unbelievable. Who would have believed that this is happening? What are we seeing? The Jews redeemed, the arm of the Lord revealed in favor of the Jews. What is this we are seeing? And then they start now from verse 1 to verse 10 of Isaiah 53, declaring, confessing in shocking admittance that they had badly treated the Jews all along. It's poetry. Isaiah 53 is poetry, full of metaphors and figurative language. And once you've understood, as I mentioned from the outset, that the servant is consistently presented as Israel, as a corporate singular entity. So you always see God referring to them as my servant, he, him, his. You have no problem understanding Isaiah 53 because the servant is always a corporate singular entity throughout Isaiah's prophetic book. So this is just an intro. As I said, we would constantly now be using YouTube to put forth this these messages, and my book is coming up very soon. I'm currently doing the proofreading, the editing, and everything. An extensive, very elaborative on this subject of the suffering servant. Just when it's ready to be distributed, would put up the announcement so that people will be able to get copies. And we are referencing already the Bible. We're not referencing anybody, just the Bible to limit the debate. Only the Bible, visiting the text, comparing the text with the text of the Christian Bible, comparing everything so that there is little or no debate um, about who the suffering servant is. So thank you and stay tuned. We're coming on YouTube from time to time to put forward these messages. Ciao, 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 ciao.